All right, Leafs Talk, JD Bunkis, joined by the wonderful Hailey Salvian. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me pinch it.
Are
Bourne had
you
something better to do tonight?
are you thrilled that you are on a show that was this game tonight? Actually, pretty exciting finish. Honestly, the game itself I thought was
Yeah,
pretty boring through the first like two and a half periods.
yeah,
Tavares takes an interference penalty, and Tyson Barrie just refuses to not do the classic thing, which is former
yeah.
Maple Leafs hurting the current Maple Leafs. And all of a sudden, it was
hmm
actually kind of a little energetic. I got a little bit of the sweats after the last couple of minutes in that hockey game.
Yeah, it was looking like I jinxed the whole thing because I texted you with like 7 minutes left in the game, being like, "So cool to talk about
Mhm.
all of these things," and then the very next play, the
Is a
Preds
goal.
get the first goal, and then it goes from 2-1 to 3-2 finish. I thought that this game was going to be one of those like, "Ooh, it's a back, just forget about it. It's not a big deal." A 2-0 loss can be a 2-0 loss.
Mhm.
So it got more, exciting than I thought it was going to be, and it was also a lot cleaner and better by the Leafs than I thought. It was very, very sloppy at first in the first period. It was pretty rough going,
Mhm.
rough watching. First, 10 minutes a game, obviously not getting a shot until 14:30 in the first period. But it turned out to be a better game than I thought it was going to be at, a 6 o'clock Sunday night game
You know what
against the
though? Like,
Preds.
I'm glad that obviously the Leafs started poor. I think that you also texted me, "Are the Leafs broken?" quite early in this game because they were very flat-footed, and it looked
Yeah.
almost hyper
I
predictable
love
that
to
the team.
overreact, by the way.
Yeah, that's fine. That's actually the best thing to do is when you're watching sports. It's just that social media,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, has captured it and decided to keep it always in time capsules. But I thought, okay, this is pretty classic. They had 50 shots essentially the night before. They played their
hmm
guts out. They lost the game. They're going to show up here in Nashville and they're going to have a slow start. And good for Joe
Yeah.
Wall. Like, he started off in
hmm
that first period and let the Leafs settle into this hockey game. I think he made 11 saves, 12 saves in the first period, a lot of
Yeah.
which were some tricky shots. There were a couple of plays that were off the rush, a couple of dangerous ones. Nothing that was like the save for me, but
hmm
just looked pretty confident in the net. And I thought that that was basically the story of the game for the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight is, hey, the third goaltender who shockingly has graded out incredibly well analytically for them when he's been
Yeah.
able to grab the net was awesome. Looked athletic,
hmm
looked big, made a bunch of saves. He gives up a decent amount of rebounds, or at least he did in that first period, but
Yeah.
always seemed to find a way to kick them into safe areas. And so, yeah, I
Yes.
think that if you're a Leaf fan and you saw this one tonight, yeah, you're not hoping to see him come Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course not. You're hoping that one of the two guys ends up running away with it. But it does feel like the Leafs are deeper in net than years past when they've had Michael Hutchinson as their third guy,
Yeah.
or they've had Riddick, your guy, coming in as their third guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually, I really didn't mind the kid tonight. I thought he was spectacular, and I really wish he would have got a shutout. He was very close to it.
Yeah, and you know what? To go back to the way that the first period was going, this looked like one of those games where you kind of come out of it saying something like, "Well, that's not the way that you want to play in front of your third string, like young goaltender." The Leafs should have locked down a little bit more. They should have been better in front of him. I mean, they ended up cleaning it up, and it didn't matter. Like the sloppiness didn't matter. Like Joseph Woll could handle it. He could handle the higher rate of shots he was getting. Pucks were coming in close. The Preds were getting high danger chances. They were getting a higher volume of shots than the Maple Leafs in the first period, and it was the young rookie goalie from the Marlies who kept them in it during the rough first 6 to 10 minutes of this first period until obviously the Leafs go and get the power play goal. But you mentioned the rebounds, and the rebound control wasn't great at times, but it was very strategic on his part. There was one great kick save in the first period where there was like tons of traffic in the net. There was all the guys in the Preds were coming from like the left side, and he did well to, he didn't freeze the puck, but he kicks it out the other way, gets it away from where all the action's going. And he made the saves need to make. He got the job done tonight. And you don't want Joseph Woll to be the guy in the postseason against the Tampa Bay Lightning, because a game against the Preds, at this point in the season is different than the first round of the playoffs, but it does give you confidence on both sides, like from Woll and from the front office and the bench staff, to know that if something were to happen in the postseason, not to have a bad omen here, but if you needed to, you have a third option that you could dip into. I'm not,
That's how all bad omens start,
you
by the
know,
way. That's
burn
how
some
all
sage,
bad omens start.
cleanse the space. I'm not trying to do it, not trying to jinx anything here, but it's a good game for like the confidence of knowing like, hey, we've got this guy who can come in and look comfortable and do his job in the NHL. Again, it's a small sample size and you're not playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round of the playoffs, but this game makes you feel pretty good about, their number 3 goalie in the depth chart right now.
Well, I also think well, first of all, you feel good about the depth within the organization, but one of the things that the Leafs have not been able to do actually, not just the last couple of years,
Homegrown goalies.
yeah, Kyle Dubas'
Yeah.
entire tenure, they had somebody, and Joe Woll was someone, third round pick. He has some pedigree. They obviously had pretty high hopes for him. A bit of an up and down, I think, developmental path so far, but this year at the Marlies, he's been dominant. And I think if you're Toronto and if you're him, you feel great that this is being paired with what you're seeing at the NHL level now too. Like, I think this was his 5th or 6th game now with the Leafs, and he has been solid. He has not looked like someone who's shaky in the net. He hasn't looked overwhelmed. He doesn't, no offense, look at all like the old Kaskasuo or the other likes from that have come up from the AHL over the last couple of years. So even if he doesn't factor in for them this year, I think it's a really good building block for his confidence this season, and also probably helps this team that's going to be really pressed again under the cap next year. If they have to decide on one of these goaltenders, somebody like a Samsonov does end up getting paid, Murray doesn't stay workable, you need to move off that contract, that you do feel like you have a little depth there. So yeah, Leafs, this was not a major story for me. Like, I guess we could probably talk about Tavares and the power play, and that ends up really settling them in. But those were just some pretty classic John Tavares power play goals. I don't really have a lot of insight into them. The first one was a nice pass. Like, it was a pretty clean goal by the team. Nice little behind the net pass. One touch.
We love a good low to high on the power play. It's classic.
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
Also, that just it looked very crisp, and it looked a little different than what we've seen in the past from them. But yeah, good game from Tavares. 3 points. Also took like the pivotal penalty in the game, but he kind of had to. So I don't know. Good game for him, I guess. I really don't have a stronger Tavares thought from this one. Just solid. Good Tavares.
The one thing I'll say, and I'm sure it's something that you would probably agree with as somebody who loves to, get into arguments with the analytics community. I love blending eye tests with underlying numbers and data, but the one bone that I've had to pick in recent years is this, a 5-on-5 scoring is very important, and we know that gives you a better, more holistic picture of, how the team is. You look for trends at 5-on-5, right? That's where you figure out how the team is at, pushing the play up ice and, getting high danger chances, etc. But there's this weird thing that's kind of come out of that, which is, well, John Tavares only has this many points at 5-on-5 this year. Do you not want your captain to be productive on the power play? Like, especially in moments like this, like you're telling me you'd rather John Tavares like not get that power play goal because you want him to be better at 5-on-5. Like, power play production matters, and it matters in the postseason specifically. And we're seeing that John Tavares is elite on the man advantage. And like, that is not a bad thing. That is not something we should be looking at and saying, well, I wish he could give us a little bit more at even strength. Sure, I agree with that. We want him to be productive at 5-on-5, but I think the fact that the Leafs have a guy in John Tavares who is one of the top 10 most productive players on the power play is going to be very important down the stretch and in the postseason. Like, we've seen, we know that the refs sometimes put the whistles away in the postseason, and that can be a really frustrating thing for fans to watch. And Connor McDavid struggles to draw penalties in the postseason. But we've also seen teams like the Florida Panthers just completely crumble because they can't get anything going on the power play in the postseason. So the one thing I'll say about Tavares' night tonight is he continues to be very productive on the power play, and I think that's going to be a really important thing down the stretch into postseason. 5-on-5 is great, but so is power play production.
Yeah, 5-on-5 is great. I think that what it is a couple things. One, this has basically been a thing now for a couple of years with Tavares. To me, there's just a certain section of the fan base that almost wants the contract to be bad. This is like where people
Sure.
they have an opinion, and then they never want to shift off of it. I think that two things can be true. Is he an $11 million player in today's NHL if he was going to get doled out the contract again? No, I think it's pretty clear that he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Is this some kind of historically bad contract? No. The first year of the Tavares contract also actually happens to matter in the grand scheme of things. If you go across and look at it, basically everything that he's given Toronto from the jump has been pretty quality. I think, again, he's just he's a quiet guy. He's probably the fourth most interesting offensive player on the team, I would say. There's not a lot of just discussions about him unless it usually is his dip, because he pretty much grades out as the guy that you expect him to be year over year with the point production. And so when he has those dips, I think people are really, really ready to jump on it. When he produces, people basically go, well, that's what he's supposed to do. And so from a narrative standpoint, I think that he just sort of gets stuck in a pretty difficult place as the captain of this team. Like, I think that's pretty much what it is. I don't think that the average observer ever looks at him and goes, yeah, he sucks, or yeah, he's really a huge disappointment. He has been, I would say, completely fine. He has earned his contract, and he was solid tonight. They did move his line mates again, though, and he's with Kerfoot, and Kerfoot scores. And
unstoppable force.
Good for Alex Kerfoot. But I think I feel the way that most Leaf fans feel when that happened, which is Sheldon Keefe now feels even more justified in keeping him in top 6 minutes. And that come playoff time, this is going to happen. By the way, on this play, we've got the video running. Nice breakout pass by Justin Hall. And then good finish for Kerfoot. I really worry about Sheldon Keefe, for whatever reason, just has an addiction to this guy in the top 6, wants to play him heavy minutes regardless of the production. And then he sees one go in like this tonight, and just I feel like they're going to be in a spot come playoff time. He's going to have one bad period of a Michael Bunting or one bad period of a Yarncroc, and you are going to see this guy play top 6 in the postseason.
I mean, I don't have an issue with top 6 Alex Kerfoot, at least right now. Don't, because who else should be there right now? It's not Michael Bunting. It's not. So I don't know. You don't just slide him in there just because you want him to end up being back with Austin Matthews. Like, he needs to work his way back up to that point because he's still struggling. And I think Alex Kerfoot, even when he's not producing, he can at least, do some good things on the defensive side of the puck. I know that's the lame Alex Kerfoot answer, but
it's very true.
He at least does. If he's not scoring, he's at least doing something else. And right now he looks to have a bit more confidence offensively, but I understand the feeling of like, oh no, because you're thinking about where is he going to slot in the postseason, and then you're thinking like, is he going to get a contract extension?
No.
Slow it down. I can see that from the fan base, but I think the fix to the Alex Kerfoot problem is just Michael Bunting working his way back up into the top 6, right? Like, he's that kind of missing piece that top 6 forward group and even potentially the top line needs. I mean, I like Kelly Yarncroc in that top line slot. I think he does everything right. And he's, he had a tough year in Calgary last year. But if you looked at the way that he played for the Preds, every year prior to getting to the Flames, he's a consistent 15-16 goal guy, great center, can play the wing, versatile, does everything right. So I like Yarncroc in that spot, but I think Michael Bunting's kind of that piece that you want to work his way back up to the top 6, because then everything else with Ryan O'Reilly coming back and playing in that 3C spot, just everything fits better, because then you can get Kerfoot, O'Reilly, and Lafferty on that third line, and everything just fits if Michael Bunting just starts playing a little bit better.
That is the one thing, is I do believe Kerfoot probably, if they decide to go with Ryan O'Reilly as the 3C, which seems more likely. I know that they'll have offensive face-offs where they just decide, we're going to load the line, we're going to move Ryan O'Reilly around, but ultimately, if they're going to go with a purer second or third checking line, I do think that that's going to involve Alex Kerfoot. I just wonder how many minutes that's going to play for some of the reasons that you just outlined. Bunting gets his own line again tonight. He had a really nice chance on the power play. He didn't finish, good shot, but overall, he gets put with basically a really pest line that I wanted.
They'd be so annoying to play against.
They would.
You want to love that.
I wanted
Over
to.
400 hits between the three of them.
Yeah,
Really
I did.
irritating.
Some good hitting. They drew
Yeah.
a penalty, although it was kind of on a really dumb play where I can't remember who it was for Nashville that tries to reach up for a puck and ends up slashing.
Oh, it was Achari, yeah.
Yeah, he slashes Achari in the hand and then, gives Toronto a power play. But it didn't.
You
I
wanted
guess
a
I'd
little
like to
more
see it
from
maybe a
it.
little bit more. Do you
Yeah.
think that you give that line another night?
Maybe. Like, I think you give them another shot. But at the same time, I'm having a really hard time putting any energy into these lines, knowing that Ryan O'Reilly is not currently in this lineup, because things are just going to continue to be put in a blender. But I think
Mm.
what you can see is that Sheldon Keefe has so many like versatile pieces, and he has so many different things that he can do with this lineup, right? Like he has the option to put together, wow, I hate playing against these guys. They're so irritating and pesky third line. But once O'Reilly comes back, then he also has the option to put together a like checking and matchup line. I think maybe if you think O'Reilly plays on that second line on the left wing, or on the center, excuse me, and you slide Tavares to the left wing, then maybe we see the Bunting kind of third line option and see those guys just irritate everybody in the postseason. So they've got options. I'd like to see them one more time, but I just wonder, like, what's the end goal of that line? Are they going to, just be really annoying? Are they going to provide offense? Like, they had some time in the offensive zone and they had a couple chances, but I can't imagine that line is going to be overly productive. So I guess I would just wonder, like, what's the goal of having those three together? If it's just to irritate people.
I think that was
I
it.
don't know.
I think that was
I'm
it.
fine with that.
Yeah, like I said, I wanted to like them more. I liked the hitting.
Mhm.
I thought that they did bring some energy on some shifts, but overall, if I'm just being honest, I did feel a little left wanting when I was
Yeah.
watching the game tonight, where I
Mhm.
went, just a little bit something more, a little bit extra, make me feel as though there's something, bonus to you
were
guys.
intrigued on paper.
Yeah,
I'm just a little like,
on paper.
they
They
were
actually
fine.
did it. And I went, this makes sense to me. This makes sense that you have all the pests together on a line and they're going to be annoying. And I kind of hope that they would maybe just chop one or have a nice little cycle time. Even the fourth line tonight created actually a couple of opportunities to score, but they actually had a couple of nice shifts in the first period. They were a little noticeable. I love that when Wayne Simmons comes into games, he just wants to be so physical. He just tries to throw a huge hit every once in a while. Yeah.
He does his thing.
I would take another look at it, but you're right. When it comes to like the long-term vision of the team, if they're going to get Ryan O'Reilly back, you're right. What is the point? It does undercut a lot of these things that they decide to take a look at. The blue line tonight, though, they went with no Liljegren and no Gustafsson. What'd you think? Because this kind of felt like these are the six guys for game one tonight, is sort of how I came away with it. Luke Schenn, how many hits did he finish with? 6? 7? He was out there thumping. He was doing his thing.
Yeah.
I thought everybody was pretty
I love
quality.
it. I love Luke Schenn.
Yeah.
Big fan. I like the 6. I think that's maybe a controversial opinion, because it seems like there's a lot of Leafs fans who like don't quite understand why Timothy Liljegren, can't get into that top 6. And I don't think it's because Timothy Liljegren's not one of the top most skilled defenders on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, he is a better player in terms of, a skill set than somebody like Luke Schenn. I think most people would agree with that. But I think what we're seeing here is Sheldon Keefe trying to find the right fits for guys and having like the identity for each pair, the top 6. And I mean, you and I had the discussion, the debate between like basically everything that's happening on the blue line revolves around like, where do you want TJ Brody? Like, where does TJ Brody most useful for you? Is it on a shutdown pair with Jake McCabe? Or is it with Morgan Riley? And then everything else kind of shakes out from there. It's TJ Brody, and then what happens with everyone else.
I love
and
that.
I like Brody with McCabe, because
Yeah.
I think you can put Brody and McCabe as like your minutes eating, 5-on-5 against the top lines kind of D pair. And then you can have Morgan Riley with whoever ends up winning that spot between Luke Schenn and Timothy Liljegren, essentially, or Eric Gustafsson. That's fine too. And then a third pair of Gio and Hall, because those two just kind of seem to go about their business. They were really good tonight. Again, Dustin Hall was moving the puck up ice really well. We saw the pass from him earlier in this segment. Like those two guys just kind of work together. And I think it's just a matter of who fits with Morgan Rielly. Because if you want TJ Brody to take on the toughest D matchups, and you don't believe that Morgan Rielly is the guy that can do that with him, then you need to find somebody who can slot in with Rielly and just free them up to be the offensive guy and shelter them a little bit.
Yeah, the case for, I guess, Shen with Rielly is that you actually have someone who can kill a cycle. And Liljegren has done that well throughout times in the year, but there's just been some games where the two of them have been together. Last night being another example of it. I didn't think that it was a coincidence that Liljegren was out of the lineup after the way yesterday finished, where the front of the net just feels like free space. And yeah, I think that they're in a bit of a tough spot with it. My guess is you'll end up seeing both of those guys in the first series. To me, it's just a matter of who ends up getting the very first one. And to me, I actually wonder if they'll probably put Liljegren in game one just because you have last change. And maybe they feel like they can control him a little bit better, the situations that he's in, versus when they end up going on the road. If that doesn't work out for them, if they're not up 2-0 in the maybe they end up flipping it and switching it. Just little notes from me now where prior to kind of close this show, if there's anything that you think I missed. I could not believe that Matthews looked as good as he did tonight, given he had 15 points the night before and then flew across the country and then still looked big and dominant. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise. He's a professional athlete. There were moments in the game where I went, holy crap, wow, this is amazing. So I can't think of a more positive sign for any Leaf fan right now than the fact that Matthews is not just like dominating once in a while or once every night. It's just like every single game right now, he seems to have his legs going. He looks strong. He looks dangerous constantly. Huge bonus for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. I think that's like, if there's any kind of worry creeping in based on the Leafs just looking okay since the trade deadline, like the kind of trump card is that Austin Matthews looks like Austin Matthews again.
Yep.
And maybe the reason why you were like pleasantly surprised by this because we had several months of the season's worth of Austin Matthews looking off and looking, a step slow, and he couldn't get a shot off the same, and it didn't look strong. It wasn't as like fluid. And we know now that he was dealing with a hand injury and, various bumps and bruises this season, but like he looks like he is back in his kind of groove. Like we're seeing the versatility of his shot. He's getting shots off in traffic. He's got a quick release again. He's doing all the things on the defensive side of the puck. He's big. He's physical. Like he just looks like what we were used to. And I think that's the ultimate trump card of like whatever worries might be creeping in is like, well, at least you have Austin Matthews looking like himself again.
Really looking great. And yeah, I'm sure he did have a wrist thing all year long, and I'm sure that he's dealt with bumps and bruises. I actually am now, though, of the mind that he felt checked out for some portions of the season and was going, our team is good. We're fine. I don't care as much about these individual awards anymore. I already got a Hart Trophy across from Connor McDavid. And now that the playoffs are starting to get close and he can smell it and he knows that this is sort of the last thing on the
let's
table.
Get going.
He's starting to heat up. Last note for me. Kudos to Sheldon Keefe. Everything he touched tonight was gold. I know I made the joke about Kerfoot and how it worries me that he's going to play him too much, but he shuffled up the lines. It worked. Kerfoot ends up scoring a goal. He changes out the D pairings. They have a really, really solid night, and Shen gives them basically everything they wanted. And then Toronto gets scored on. He calls a timeout at a pretty unconventional time. Team settles down. They draw a penalty shortly after. They put the game back up and score the game-winning goal. So kudos to Sheldon Keefe. I think that we oftentimes neglect a coach's impact, and he's usually somebody that people will rail on because that's what you do as a sports fan is complain about the coach. It's a soft target, but yeah, really good game for him tonight.
Yeah, it's almost like saying that Sheldon Keefe should get fired after the first month this season was just fine. Actually, exactly the same as last year's first month this season was like not the right move.
I don't know anyone who even discuss those takes.
Are you serious?
Of course, I had it myself. What are you talking about? This is a joke.
Oh.
We had it for weeks.
What are you talking about?
It was
where were you? It was everywhere.
Every game was his lifeblood. Anything left for you?
No, I'm with you on the Sheldon Keefe moves, and also just the fact that the Leafs like didn't waste the gift. They were gifted, a pretty dumb penalty by Kerfoot, high sticking William Nylander at the end there after they just got a gift and tied the game up, got themselves, or not tied the game up, but got themselves on the board and got themselves like in the game. And he takes the penalty. I'm not sure what he was complaining about. He clearly high sticked him in the face. And the Leafs go out on the power play, and it's John Tavares, and he comes and he gets the goal. They didn't waste that little silver platter they were given. So that's it for me.
Good for the Leafs. You can follow her at Hailey_Salvian. You want to plug any of your work, shows, anything?
No.
You're not going to plug your work? Hailey, good. She also
you can catch me at The Athletic. I host The Athletic Hockey Show on Friday mornings. I write at The Athletic. Women's World Championships is coming up, so I'm going to be dialed in on that for the next 3 weeks. Team Canada looking for back-to-back World Championships, which will be pretty huge. So that's a big deal. And I'll be on the morning show tomorrow. So
right.
On the Fan 590. So, if you aren't sick of me, wake up at 6 a.m. with me and listen to that some more. I'll have the exact same takes in the morning.
You're really nice for doing this the night before the morning show. If this was a 7 o'clock game, I probably wouldn't have even asked.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
No
well,
chance.
I'll let you go. Succession. You can go play with your dog. I'm sad that Bono didn't make an appearance tonight on.
He's sleeping in this one spot you can't see on the couch, so he got a little camera shy.
It really would have helped the numbers on the show had we.
Yeah, if the dog was here.
Sam's dog is never in the mix. Born every once in a while has a cat that will make an appearance.
Maybe animals just don't like you.
That has nothing.
It's the sound of your voice coming through the speakers and they scatter.
I am an animal whisperer, all right? Animals love me. I adore animals. We have a real like Snow White situation going on where I show up, they usually come out. You can
except when you're on the show.
Yeah, except for when I'm on the show. Yeah, digital. Something's lost through the screen. A lesson to us all. And what do they say? Touch some grass. Also touch that like button, hit the thumbs up. You can leave 5 stars on iTunes. You can leave 5 stars on Spotify. You can do all those nice things. You can share the podcast, do everything like that. For JD Bunkis, for Hailey Salvian, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will see you Wednesday.